If you or a loved one have recently suffered from watching Jets football, you may be entitled to financial compensation. Or at least you probably should be. Tackle with short arms is a guard. We've got another 2020 draft report card today, and we are going over the New York Football Jets. I am your judge and jury, John Morris, and this is a rough one. But before we get into that, we have done all of the AFC and the NFC North teams, so here is how all of those shook out. And I think we should take a step back to add some context to where the Jets were coming into this draft. You see, in 2019, they had kicked off the year by firing their previous GM, Mike Magannon, after he had signed free agents like Le'Veon Bell and CJ Mosley, and after he had drafted their entire 2019 draft class, which actually shook out okay. And for that season, they finished at 9-7 after a 1-7 start. They did string some life together towards the end of the year, and the most optimistic Jets fan probably could have talked themselves into just being a few pieces away from possibly being a wild card team. Now, we all know that didn't happen, but this 2020 draft class was new general manager Joe Douglas's first opportunity to be in control of a draft, to sign free agents, so there was a little bit of optimism. With that being said, let's get into this draft. Kicking off their first round at pick number 11, they grabbed Louisville tackle Mekhi Becton. Now, Mekhi Becton was very highly rated out of college. He was looked at as a can't-miss franchise left tackle no matter where he went. A lot of the post-draft analysis of this pick was extremely positive. The Jets did something right, at least in the eyes of most scouts, experts, things of that nature. But there's on paper and then there's reality. In reality, Mekhi Becton missed a lot more games than he even played for the Jets, including missing the entire 2022 season with a knee injury. And when he was on the field, his play was shaky. There were a lot of reports saying that the Jets had asked him to switch to guard. He refused to switch to guard, and then eventually they just cut ties. So after that, it is kind of funny to note that he went to Philly, played guard, where he played very, very well, and the Eagles won a Super Bowl. The New York Jets to Philadelphia Eagles Super Bowl champion pipeline is uncanny. Overall, this is a 2 out of 10 pick for the Jets. Outside of quarterback, the most important player on an offense is a left tackle. And if you're going to draft one, especially that early on, you have to hit on it. And it's not entirely the Jets' fault, but the value they got out of him just wasn't good. And with such a high pick, there's just no way to grade this pick positively. A little later on in the second round, they went and they grabbed Baylor wide receiver Denzel Mims. Now, Mims spent 3 seasons with the Jets. His best year was his rookie year, where he pulled in 357 receiving yards. He never scored a touchdown in a regular season NFL game, and because it's the Jets, he didn't score one in a postseason game either. He had a lot of nagging injuries early. He eventually got traded to the Detroit Lions in 2023 in a trade that included a late round conditional pick swap in the 2025 draft. All of the issues that he had in college that were looked at as potential downsides to him ended up coming very true in the NFL. His frame is 6'3" and over 200 pounds. He was looked at as a big-bodied guy that can make contested catches, but the biggest knock on him was his routes weren't super crisp. He had a limited route tree in college, and he played smaller than he was. So he would get bullied at the catch point, inconsistent hands on contested balls, things like that. I don't know what it is with NFL teams. Maybe they just see the size profile of these guys and they're like, oh, we can fix him. It reminds me of guys like Miles Boykin, who the Ravens had drafted, who was pretty much a carbon copy of what happened with Mims. He's actually a current player in the UFL on the St. Louis Battlehawks. You know, for this pick, this is a 3 out of 10. Because it's a second rounder, I'm not grading it quite as harshly as I'm grading that first rounder, but you're drafting a wide receiver fairly early on. It's gotta be better than that. You know, the second round pick is a way too high of a pick to draft a wide receiver that just doesn't pan out, especially in the way that Mims didn't pan out, where every single one of his concern areas coming out of the draft ended up being very true and very much a problem in the NFL. Something like that just feels avoidable. 9 picks later in the 3rd round, they went and got safety Ashtyn Davis out of Cal. Now, Ashtyn Davis spent 5 seasons with the Jets before actually recently going to Miami in free agency. He really developed into a good rotational guy, a guy that he's a really good special teamer and you can trust if needed for a spot start or a certain package in rotation. You could trust that he would get in there and he would do his job. He had 8 career interceptions with the Jets. I'm giving this one a 5 out of 10. Overall, a 3rd rounder, especially that early in the 3rd, I would say that's good value, not great value. And I think it would be reasonable to hope for just a little bit more out of a 3rd round pick in that spot, but it's good. This is one of their best picks of this class, and that's unfortunate. Later on in that same 3rd round at pick number 79, they grabbed Florida defensive end Jabari Zuniga. He played 2 seasons with the Jets. He appeared in 11 games, notching a sack and a forced fumble. Injuries were a problem for him. He just was never able to consistently get and stay on the field, but when he did play, he was pretty underwhelming. It just wasn't working, and he spent a lot of time back and forth on the Jets practice squad, and then eventually he was out of the league in 2023. For a pick like this, again, with a 3rd rounder, you need to get a little bit more for a guy. The most successful teams in the NFL are built on those 3rd to 5th round picks, and this is just a 3 out of 10. In the 4th round at pick number 120, they grabbed Florida running back LaMichael Pirine. He spent 2 seasons with the Jets. His best year was his rookie year. We had 230 yards on the ground and 2 touchdowns. In his 2nd year, he only appeared in 4 games, so obviously the Jets weren't super happy with what he was putting on the field. And in 2022, he was waived, and he's been bouncing around practice squad since. What would be a solid pick for a running back in the 4th round is a guy who can be a change of pace guy, can come in on certain packages. Maybe he has a specialty, like, hey, maybe he's really good receiving out of the backfield, or even occasionally can line up in kind of a slot role for certain formations, or maybe a power back, a goal line guy, someone who can come in as fresh legs and be productive, and Michael Pirine just never really was that. This pick gets a 3 out of 10. You just need more in the 4th round. I was actually a little bit concerned when I was grading this draft, when I got towards the end, that this class would actually break my curve. It didn't, but I thought about it. 5 picks later in that 4th round, they picked up FIU quarterback James Morgan. Going into this draft, they had Joe Flacco on the roster, ever elite. They were still crossing their fingers and hoping Sam Darnold could pan out. I understand wanting a 3rd quarterback. 100%. I get it. I even understand drafting a 3rd quarterback, but not at this spot. Every single time a quarterback who maybe has a little bit of upside gets drafted late, there's always that talk of, oh yeah, well, Tom Brady, or more recently, although on a different level, Brock Purdy. You can find a gem there sometimes. Emphasis on sometimes. It's super rare. And all the way up in the 4th round, getting a guy who is, you're taking a flyer on him, and that's not the appropriate spot. Late in the 6th round, 7th round, absolutely, that's the spot. But a 4th round, those 4th round picks are still valuable. Even in the 4th round, you are hoping for somebody that can make at least consistent spot starts for you, or quality special teams play, and you don't get that out of a quarterback. For the pick of James Morgan out of Florida International University, the Jets get a 2 out of 10. Now, the Jets had a lot of 4th rounders. They actually had 3 picks, less than 10 picks. They had 3 picks, 10 picks apart in the 4th round, and with that pick number 129 in the 4th, they grabbed tackle out of Charlotte, Cameron Clark. This guy's story is really unfortunate. So coming out of college, he was looked at as a very high potential upside mid-round pick, saying, hey, he was a tackle. Everybody expected him to pop into guard and thought that, hey, he could be really good at guard. Kind of a developmental guy, but with very high potential upside. None of that panned out, and it wasn't really his fault. He suffered a spinal injury in training camp of his rookie year. He was told that playing football again, he would be seriously risking paralysis, and he medically retired in 2022. It's super unfortunate, but with the way that this draft has shaken out up to this point, And with what happened to this guy, the only reasonable thing to come away with here is that the New York Jets are a cursed entity. At pick number 158 in the 5th round, they took Virginia corner Bryce Hall. He spent 4 seasons with the Jets. He started 26 total games. He started every game for them in 2021. Eventually, as they drafted up more corner talent, he got relegated to more of a reserve backup special teamer role. When he was starting, he showed some flashes here and there that never really quite materialized. He did provide some nice little bright spots for Jets fans as they were trudging through football purgatory. You know, for a 5th rounder, you can't hate what the Jets got there. You can't love it, but it's a 5 out of 10. I would say for a 5th rounder, that's acceptable. And with their final pick of the 2020 NFL Draft, the New York Jets in the 6th round at pick number 191 got Brandon Mann, a punter out of Texas A&M. Now, if you're going to draft a punter or a kicker or anybody who is just a special teams guy, you better hit. Those guys are available as undrafted free agents. So if you're going to use a pick on a guy like that, you better crush it. And the Jets really didn't. And then in 2023, when the Jets picked up free agent Thomas Morstead, who is a fantastic punter, he ended up getting released, and then he went to the Eagles and won a Super Bowl. So hey, if you're a player on the Jets and you're frustrated with how the franchise is going, just take your release paperwork and go to the Eagles, and you are guaranteed a Super Bowl. I really wanted, when I first saw this pick, I really wanted to give it a super low grade, because like, what the hell are you doing drafting a punter and it not working out? And then I wanted to clown on them relentlessly, but after thinking about it for a little bit, I gave this pick a 4 out of 10, just because I feel like it was teetering on a 3, but it's a 6th rounder. I can't be too harsh with it, so I gave it a 4. This wraps up the 2020 Jets draft class. Let's see how they did. They got a total grade of 29 out of 90 potential points, which is a 32.2%, which on our scale is an F+, if such a thing exists. That's not good, and we shouldn't even have to do this, but let's see how it stacks up with everybody else that we've graded. Oh man, Jets, come on. Now, I think with the draft class like this, it's really important to ask what happened after this, because obviously this class didn't pan out. So how did it affect them moving forward? And, you know, head coach Adam Gase got fired in the middle of this season, in the middle of this 2020 season, and he was a big part of the problem, but very clearly he was not the whole problem. The coaching carousel hasn't stopped in New York since, I don't think it's stopped since the 90s, at least, probably further back than that. Despite having a few solid drafts after that, general manager Joe Douglas got let go in the middle of the 2024 season, and a huge part of that is just because they could not hit on a quarterback. Obviously, there was the Zach Wilson draft pick that very much didn't pan out. And then there was the whole Aaron Rodgers stuff that we're just now getting out of. That's kind of the reality if you're a general manager or a head coach or an offensive coordinator in the National Football League. And it is, if you don't have a quarterback, you will soon be out of a job. The next team we're going to be grading is the Bills. So fingers crossed we can return to something resembling competency. And I did change up the format of this a little bit. Previously I was going division by division. We've changed it to team by team, because draft classes like the Jets do deserve their own spotlight and context, and I just can't do that if I'm grading 4 teams at once. Now, if you liked this video, if you remembered a player who you haven't thought about in a while, or even if you just hate the Jets, please feel free to like and subscribe. And I am John Morris, and I will catch you all later.